Morning and welcome to the very first Design Bees webinar, looking at how marketing teams can move faster with smarter budgets. Hi everyone, I'm Nathan Azush, your co-founder of Design Bees, and I'll be your host and moderator today. First of all, thank you for making the time to join us. We know how busy things can get, so we really appreciate you being here. Our goal today is to share insights that not only add value, but might actually help free up more time moving forward. So hopefully by the end of the session, you'll feel it was time well spent. Just a bit of quick housekeeping before we dive in. Presentation will run for around 20 minutes, followed by time for Q&A. So feel free to jot down any questions as we go. After the session, we'll send out a recording, ask for your feedback. We'd love your thoughts to try and shape up the future of our webinars as we move forward. We'll also share a special offer exclusively for the attendees who are intrigued by what they hear today. So, without further ado, let's get into it. We're lucky to be joined by my co-founder and all-round busy bee, Liz Lord, as well as the incredibly talented Tasha Meils, the marketing lead extraordinaire at Arcadier, and for full transparency, a long-time user of our service. With that, I'll quickly hand over to Liz and Tasha to introduce themselves.
Everyone, I'm Liz Lord. I've had too long a career in marketing, and my last kind of big corporate gig was as CMO of PayPal Australia. And since I stopped doing that in about 2022, I've started fractionally CMOing. So I go into Australian businesses and try and help shape their marketing and turn their marketing around. But also on the side, have also started Design Bees. So that's a bit about me. Tasha, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Tasha Meils. I am the marketing lead and also general dog's body at Arcadier, where we're a small, well, I'd say mid-tier tech company, so I fill quite a few roles. And we've been, actually, I'm not sure how long we've been Design Bees for, but it's been a very productive relationship so far.
Thank you both. We're here today to discuss the design dilemma. And before we dive in, we'd love to learn a little bit more about you, our audience. We're going to launch a quick poll now with just 2 short questions. So if everyone can jump in and answer those, we'll just learn a little bit more about the audience. Pretty resounding 92%, 93% have never used a design package before. So let's go on to poll 2. Now, I'm trying to figure this out, but here we go. How do you feel about DIY design? One more to go. Thank you. So pretty evenly split, quite a lot enjoy the mental break that it provides. A good few folks have said they've got it covered, and One person has said it's out of control. So maybe they'll get the most out of listening to this one, but let's carry on. I'm now going to pass you over to Liz, who is going to talk us through what are her thoughts around the design dilemma and why traditional design solutions can become bottlenecks to slowing teams down.
Thank you, Nathan. So yeah, so as I mentioned, I've worked in large businesses, in PayPal and other large corporates, but the last couple of years I've gone into kind of smaller, mid-size enterprises, fractionally CMOing, and the one thing I've seen that's consistent across all businesses is design bottlenecks. And they're consistent for a few reasons, because people have limited budgets. You often find seasonality in the work that we're doing on the marketing side. Product launches, a new go-to-market needs a ton of assets and collateral making. And my favorite one is probably stakeholder projects. If you're in a leadership role or a marketing team, you always get the CEO, oh, can you just help me do this? Or, oh yeah, marketing can help us do that. The amount of projects that just come in across the business because you have access to a designer or the colors and shapes department is always quite phenomenal. So those are the observations I've seen, that, design bottlenecks are everywhere. And even in the largest of businesses with a huge team of designers, you still get them. So, the answer I've seen that a lot of smaller businesses have turned to recently is DIY design. And if you just flip to the next page, obviously, Canva, we love Canva, we use all kinds of tools, but Canva has really democratized the design world for everyone. And I think that has real benefits in some ways. If you need to make a quick edit, it's quick. But if you're doing it from scratch and even using AI tools, etc., it's a huge time drain on your resource for the business. You're generally a really expensive resource if you're a marketing cost. You could be looking at $100 a head, fully loaded. And the opportunity cost of you doing something else to add more value is always real, versus you kind of sat designing. And the final reality is usually that a trained graphic designer will do a much better job and much quicker. So, with regards to is DIY design the answer, I believe it's not, for all those reasons. So in terms of what the options are for creative relief, there's a few things. Obviously, this market of designers is quite mature. And if you just move to the next slide, there's not really, when you get these bottlenecks, there hasn't really been good solutions that support you ongoing until the idea of design packages, which obviously most of you have not used a design package, but you might have heard of them. And essentially what they do is they tap into this kind of fractionalization of a resource, which has become quite common in marketing now. I'm the fractional CMO, I carve up my time to work across different clients. The same is true of a designer here. You pay for a package and you get a portion of a dedicated designer's time to work across your brand. And the benefit of this is it's reliable. That you're getting a set time every day or, X amount of jobs. It's cost efficient and your designer's always there to work on them. So if you just move to the next slide, the benefit of this versus, some of the other techniques that are around is that, it can be done on a platform. And so, the design world is really suited towards a platform kind of systemized process. And how it works is that you pay for a monthly fee, a bit like a Spotify subscription, and you either use it or lose it. And that allows you to tap into the design resource to basically put your jobs through. Everything's submitted via a portal, so it's all done online, which, the briefing world is really suited to that. Load what you want in, load your copy in, any inspiration files, etc. It's all done online, so kind of a platform approach. And then the job gets assigned to your designer, they work on it, and then, depending what plan you're on, you can expect to receive the design back probably in 1 to 4 days. Does depend what's in your queue, what kind of plan you're with the company and what their terms are, but typically it's usually quite a fast turnaround. Probably the key benefit is that here for speed is that, you know, you can prioritize and tell them which design is most important. They've obviously not got all the distractions of the office, of people interrupting them, etc. So, you know, they can really focus and get dedicated design time for you and your brand. So that's kind of how it works as a platform. And then, you know, in terms of what you can design, if you just move to the next slide, please, Nathan, pretty much everything. You'll find that most plans and most companies that offer these plans, you can pretty much do anything. The main restriction on most of them is HTML coding. They don't venture into HTML coding of web pages, etc. And that's mainly because the coding practice is sort of, you know, a bit distinct. There are some businesses that do it, but the majority will stay clear of HTML. And so essentially you can use these as your, you know, as a source to get design work done. And, you know, because of the suite of designers that is in the business, you can find that, you know, where perhaps maybe your internal designer might have some shortfalls on, say, video or Figma design. If you're doing websites, you can kind of supplement their potential kind of skill gaps with in a kind of cost efficient way using a design package. So essentially think of it, you can do everything, but just remember HTML is usually kind of out of the question. And if you just move to the next slide, I don't know if the audio is going to work on this, apologies, but we always say, you know, it's much better to see something. So this is a really short video that just shows you, it's like a cut down version of how our platform works. So this is the briefing process here. You can see we ask, what do you want to brief? This is a social media post. We ask, what format do you want it in? Adobe, Canva, JPEG, and you can choose those. And then you get an email to let you know that the job's in. The designer then works on it, and then we go through an approval process, again, all online. So you can see here, you click and comment in a tool. And essentially, once you've got it with unlimited revisions to the point of that you're happy with it, you hit approve, and then we push the files out again via the platform, via an email, and you get to download them. So you can see that's a really compressed view of how the platform works, but in essence, it's all done online. The main thing to say is, you know, whilst it's an online platform, I call this like the Jetstar of design, you know, certainly it's not the Qantas with full account support, etc. We do have online support to help you, and you know that varies between different companies of what kind of support they'll offer, so that's something to consider as well for your businesses, you know, what type of support you'll need to help you get through things. Okay, I'll hand back to you, Nathan. Thank you. Nathan, you're on mute.
There we go. Brilliant. Let's move over to Tasha and ask her a few questions about how Arcadier tackled their design dilemma. So, Tash, before we get going, like, what problems were you struggling with before you found Design Bees?
Well, as I mentioned in the introduction, we're a mid-tier tech company and we don't have a big marketing team. We're actually owned by a private equity company, which some of you know that brings, you know, significant pressure in terms of deliverables and output. We had a lot that we needed to do, and we were also in a bit of a turnaround phase at that point. And, you know, really it's me in the marketing team and some juniorish staff. So we had junior staff spending some time faffing in Canva, to be honest with you, and they quite enjoyed it as a mental break. I enjoyed it less because it meant that it was distracting them from doing actual marketing work. And look, they could come up with something half decent, but the problem was it's just, you know, it's kind of a waste of our resources, right? We were paying marketing people to plain Canva, and we just weren't getting the output. We really had a lot to do, and there's just no way that we could push through and get all those deliverables out the door.
So the cost was kind of in the cost of the expense of having your people do the design, but then also from a time and resource point of view.
That's right. So look, we were never going to get a head count for a graphic design resource. And there was a cost. I think it's an opportunity cost. So the opportunity cost was marketers not actually doing marketing. Also, I think a high cost of when we did need to bring in a designer we had to do some web pages, and we brought in an external designer, but it was significantly, it was expensive, right? We had an Australian designer come in, and she did a good job, but it was expensive. So the highest cost, though, I think, was what we could produce in a time period. Like, we just couldn't get out the door what we needed to. It was just too slow.
Right. So prior to Design Bees, the process for solving those kind of bottlenecks was throw money at it to try and get it done quickly.
Yeah, and I think process is probably overstating it, to be honest. It was just a bit of a scramble. Like, I think what happened is we would almost just work on maybe one or two things at a time, rather than covering a breadth of stuff that we could do. And, we even had, like, for example, our sales ops person is based in Singapore, and she's very good, but she happens to be very good at doing PowerPoint presentations. So we would say, hey, Nat, can you just fix this sales deck or this CEO presentation for us? And again, she did a decent job, definitely not as good as Design Bees. But again, the opportunity cost is her spending time on her actual role, which is sales ops. So we sort of, scrambled our way through, but I'll get back to that same point, is we weren't getting the output that we should have been, or that we needed to.
And did you venture down any other solutions or anything, other providers?
No, just bringing external designers in for web pages. And then we just, I think the word that I saw earlier was bottleneck, right? We were really sort of just bottlenecked in our deliverables. We've had people come in and do some, and I've worked at a number of other companies where we had branding done, and we looked at that as well, getting somebody in to do sort of some specialist work, but it's quite expensive, and it didn't solve the problem of all the collateral we needed to produce, and the new web pages we needed to do, and the ongoing sort of day-to-day stuff.
Right. And what brought you to Design Bees?
A couple things. Look, the flexibility of Design Bees really appealed to us. When I say us, the wider company, because it's a subscription offering, and I think we started on a lower package and then migrated up. And we also didn't need to sell in a really costly annual fee of either, or a headcount cost to the private equity firm. We could say, look, we've got a lot to do. We can use this for a month or two, and we can try it. And if it doesn't work, we can stop it. So I think the flexibility was really critical for us. The other thing is, an Australian company, I felt like we could trust the integrity of that. I've used Get a Freelancer, and I've used Top Tower for some tech resources before. And often sometimes you do get really good resources, but there's always a risk, right? So I think the flexibility, but the low risk in terms of we felt that we were going to get quality output from this company. And again, being Australian, we just knew that we could. It wasn't a faceless organization, right? If there was ever a problem, and we haven't had any, thankfully, we knew that there was somebody that we could go to and get that problem solved.
Right. So you picked up the phone and shouted at me all this, yeah?
Exactly, yeah.
And so just as an overview, like, how do you, I think you've kind of paraphrased it, but any specifics or different use cases on how you get the best out of Design Bees today?
Yeah, so we've done with Design Bees, we've done a lot. Like, when I look back over the period of the time that we've been with you, and again, I couldn't tell you which month it is, but what we've managed to deliver is pretty phenomenal. So, so for our collateral, our sales collateral, or our web pages, what we do is we might use ChatGPT, or we might use Jasper to help us create that content that we put in a brief to Design Bees, and they spit out something that looks lovely. And often we'll go through some revisions. I find the system really easy, file stage to make the comments sound super easy, right? So sometimes you know, even if I stuff things up at my end, I can go back in. It might take a few rounds of revisions to get right. The other thing which has been brilliant for us is the sales decks and the presentations. You know, there's always quite a few CEO presentations, and that might be to external clients, or it might be up to the private equity company. So our CEO creates the content, and he doesn't waste time, you know, again, faffing around on it, making it look good. And he's actually an ex-consultant, so he has the ability to do a decent presentation. But he's so impressed. He puts the presentations, well, let's be honest, I put the presentations into Design Bees for him. And what comes out is just super slick and professional. And he loves that. Same for the sales decks. And we also we've seen a few templated solutions in Arcadier. And when we're trying to pitch these to a client, we will often do a mock-up for them. So we will put that into Design Bees, and that allows us to give something to the client to say, hey, look what we can do with our templated solution. Look how amazing that this would look for you. And that's been a bit of a game changer as well. So really we do everything. Like, I can't think of, we do LinkedIn ads. It's just efficient. So it's me and the two other marketers, and sometimes even the salespeople put something into Design Bees. It's been really streamlined, and it's been a game changer, I'll be honest with you, in terms of our output.
Okay, so thanks. There's obviously benefits in operational cost, efficiency, speed. I think, you know, to wrap up, Tash, what would you say to others who might be considering using Design Bees or a service similar to ours for the first time?
Look, we are so happy with it, and I think what I would say is it's kind of a no-brainer because it is low risk. You do not have to commit to 12 months. You can try it for a month. You can try it on the lower package or the middle package and put in a few things and see if you're happy with it. Like, it's just, I think you'll find that the quality is, you know, top notch, right? That the quality is optimal, and even the process is really fluid and streamlined. Like, we've just had no problems. It's so nice, you know, to sort of be able to work with a company where we feel that it's just one thing that we don't have to worry about. You know, we put everything in there. It comes back in a really, I guess, reasonable time frame, and yeah, we're really happy with the output. So I think try it. You know, if you don't like it, you don't have to stay. I think that low risk and that flexibility is just what makes it so appealing.
Thank you, Tasha. I can see why we invited you to our first webinar for sure. No, thank you. It's really good to hear from you, and I'm glad we can continue to help. I'll pass back now to Liz to quickly wrap up before we jump into the Q&A if we've got any questions from folks.
Oh, so I'm just going to talk to you with my fractional CMO hat on, because I've been a consumer of these services, and you know, it was one of the reasons why I started Design Bees in the first instance. And you know, the proof is in the pudding, the design pudding. Really, it's like Tasha said, you kind of have to just see. And if you just move to the next slide, I wanted to give you a bit of kind of guidance from my learnings. You know, I understand, because I am a marketeer, the perceived risk of doing this can be quite high. And it's interesting, when I started putting in an overseas company into the places I was fractionally CMOing before I made Design Bees, I realized that I was thinking like I was retaining an agency for a year, you know, like a massive pitch, and, you know, the risk was really high. And then I realized, oh, you know, actually, I only need to commit to a free trial and then a month, and I can just go. So I think, you know, the guidance for me is, obviously you have to do your due diligence on whether the company's right for you, whether they're offering the right package, whether it's going to meet your design needs in terms of the types of assets you need and the volume of work you're going to put through. But I think the key thing is to flip the B2B narrative that might be playing in your head if you're a marketeer, which is usually when you're choosing a solution provider, like an agency or a performance agency, you know, you go into it believing that, you know, this is going to make or break and it's perceived high risk, whereas the reality is, because of this model is very fluid and you're only really locked in for 1 month, the risk is actually very low. And so I even had to coach myself when I was choosing before I set Design Bees up around this area of actually there's low risk. So that's kind of the key thing I would say, is to think about that and the upside that you might get from unbottlenecking design versus, you know, just giving it a go. And so just to summarize, obviously, we've talked about general companies here. Tasha's talked about Design Bees. You know, in terms of what we offer, we do it by a daily designer. So we fractionalize the designer down, and they work on your time zone as well, because we're Australian based. So they're based on Australian Eastern Standard Time hours. And we work with a bunch of businesses. Arcadier is obviously in here, but we have a bunch of B2B businesses. We also have some B2C as well. Lots of different types of businesses, but obviously the audience here is mainly B2B in terms of sales support, etc. And we kind of understand the volume of work that you need to do to get your lead gen humming. So that's us, Design Bees.
Oh, thanks, Liz. Thanks, everyone. I think we'll fire up now and do a quick round of Q&A. There's a few rolling in already. We have one, Liz. Maybe you can answer this one. First question. Good designers are hard to come by. Do you vet your designers?
Oh, yes, we do. Our designers actually go through, first of all, they go through a portfolio screen. Then we actually give all our designers the same test across a few different assets, social media, video, and presentation. And that's actually the easiest way to cut the wheat from the chaff, because it allows you to just see a great design versus, oh, that's terrible. Interestingly, we also, in that test, give them one with a really strict brand guideline, i.e. here's a brand guidelines that must be followed to the letter, and another where we go, this is a small company, there's no brand guidelines, just look at the website. And it's interesting because we screen out straight away numerous creatives who think, yeah, I'm just not going to follow your brand guidelines, and we go, no, okay, gone. So yeah, we probably eliminate about, I'd say 60% of people straight off the bat.
Right. Great. Hope that answered the question. Another question. What is Design Bees' advantage, disadvantage compared to finding an individual designer on a talent website like the Fiverr or Behance? Yeah,
sure. So I think if you're using the freelance websites, obviously you can find an amazing freelancer. I've used freelancers in the past that you can be trusted. The challenge is they're often conflicted with other clients. You know, you've got a big need and they're like, oh, sorry, I'm working on something else and I can't help you, or they're on holiday or whatever. The other thing I think with freelancers is, you know, if you've got to change a freelancer and you can't go consistently to the same one, them getting up to speed with your brand can take a while. And so for me, you know, if you're having to go through lots of freelancers, that's draining on you, because the ramp period can be a lot. And I think the other thing is, you know, designers, even if they're really good, it's really hard to critique your own work. And when you're working directly with a designer, there's no layer of a second pair of eyes, you know, spell checking it, making sure did you hit the brief. Whereas for us with Design Bees, we call it kind of quality control. And so, you know, because we say with a Jetstar of design, it's not full account managed support, you know, it's not someone kind of art directing everything, but there is a second pair of eyes of someone who will check your brief and check that it meets the guidelines that you wanted. And they'll send it back, they'll put review changes in and say, hey, there's a typo here, or there's this. It is humans, we're not AI powered doing this yet. And so they will make mistakes, but that second pair of eyes checking your work, I think is our big difference, because that's actually why I started Design Bees, is because I was using overseas and I was like, that should never have come to me. That's bad. That wastes my time. And so that's the difference for us. We built in that quality control layer that stops you as the client going, that should never have come to me.
Okay, thanks, Liz. Jack wants to know, what does the transition process typically look like when it comes to sharing brand guidelines and helping designers understand a brand's style and voice before content creation begins. For content, we have a clear and established brand identity, but we're looking to bring in additional graphic and creative support to complement our existing direction.
So what happens is when you take up a free trial, we ask you to give us your brand guidelines. So you either load them in, your PDFs and all your logos, etc., etc. And then through the process of the free trial, we offer a design, and generally that process is a bit slower. We always say there's kind of a ramp for the first kind of couple of weeks of the designer learning your brand. And so the more things you can give us, the better. You know, if you've got certain icons in an icon library, that all saves us having to go and find them ourselves, and then possibly, you know, oh, the lines are too thick, we use thinner lines. So I would say that ramp period is probably anywhere between you know, the free trial, and it could be up to 4 weeks, depending on what type of mediums you're going to put through. You know, if your jobs are quite kind of, you know, diverse across video, socials, you know, capability documents, you'll tend to find that brand learning process can take about a month. And certainly we encourage the designers to spend longer and a bit more time in their working day when they're working on, you know, making sure that everything is on brand before they send it back to you. And obviously the quality control is also looking at that before it comes back to you much more diligently in the early stages of a package.
Great. And look, I'm just conscious of time now. We're kind of getting towards the end. So I just wanted to jump on to our last slide. There were a few other questions. We'll get back to the people via email with the answers to those. Look, if we have an offer for anyone who attended, you know, Liz already mentioned that we do offer a 7-day free trial. So if you do want to come and try out the platform, if you sign up before July the 31st, we're offering bonus Prezi vouchers to anyone who joins. So look, if you want to give it a crack straight away, scan the QR code, or look out for the follow-up email that will be coming through, I think, from the webinar in the next 24 hours. All the details will be there on how you can get in touch with us. We'll have a recording of the webinar and share some more advice and ask for feedback. So look, thank you, everyone. That's it. That's our first webinar. Went pretty well from my point of view, apart from my little 15 seconds on mute where I was wonderful, but no one heard me. Look, we appreciate it. We really do. We hope you got a lot out of it. Look out for future webinars from us at Design Bees. And with that, I'd just like to thank Liz and Tash and everyone attended, and wish you all a very happy Thursday. Bye.